the same in yours. All of you know, who are regular listeners, how grateful that I am to each one of you for listening to the show. There's absolutely nothing more valuable than time, so I'm honored that you are sharing yours with me. To show my gratitude, I have started a Lady Boss Loyalty Monthly Swag giveaway. Simply comment on a podcast episode on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn with the hashtag Lady Boss Loyalty, and you'll automatically be entered. So now let's jump into whatever. I don't know.
Of course, Louise. Let's go.
I'm all in. Let me share a little bit with you about Ginger Johnson, the wonderful Ginger, whose laughter you can hear right now.
Love you, Louise.
And Ginger and I will both be energetically sharing my message, certainly Ginger's message, and her mission of connectivity, the human to humankind, not the fiber optic kind. From middle school teacher to firefighter to retail, hardware, and coach, our speaker has been in all sorts of jobs and situations where she's been the one who's been on the front line, connecting with people from myriad walks of life. From all those experiences, she has learned the power of connectivity, how to get inspired to create a life and work she loves. Having lived in 8 different states, from towns of 212 people to major metro areas, she knows there are remarkable people and opportunities everywhere. In addition to being a professional speaker, trainer, and connector, she loves to cook for anyone who will come to her home. I'm in.
Yes.
And she absolutely loves to read and loves the snow. So welcome to the show, Ginger.
Woo! Excellent, Louise. Mwah. Good to be here. Hey, everybody. I'm glad you're here. You picked a good show to be listening to.
I agree.
Yeah.
I wanted to share with you something that had me in chuckles. Share with our listeners something that had me in chuckles before the show started. I'm going to just jump right on in there, Ginger.
Yeah, let's chuckle it up.
And there's a reason for it as well. You did what you call the podcast dance. Those who are watching either live on Facebook right now or watching the replay through my YouTube channel, let's see the Ginger podcast dance.
Woo, everybody.
There we go.
Going loose with it, just move your body, have a good time. Whatever that podcast dance looks like for you, dancing is about you and having fun.
I love it. And and we say it in jest, I brought it up in some fun, but I really brought it up for a reason as well, because it does 2 things that I think we need more of in this world. No. One is movement and one is joy. It's like the laughter that we had.
Yes.
It's amazing the difference it actually does in our brains. It rewires our brains. And for those who really don't care about the impact it has on the brain, it just makes you feel good.
Yes.
And when we feel good more often, it makes us feel good more often.
It does, Louise. You're so right. One of the mantras I've held for a long time is have fun or get out. And it sounds rather drastic and abrupt. At the same time, you are absolutely right. We could have somebody else talk about the science all day. It's not my forte. And we know that we feel better. So why do we feel better? Well, there's some real reasons to that. And there's plenty of experts to tell us that. So I'm all in. I think the first time you and I spoke, we were laughing within the first few minutes. That's a good sign to me, because that if somebody has a sense of humor, they are braver, they are happier, they are not taking themselves too seriously while they might be doing serious work. They realize that there's a threshold that to be happy or to express joy is really important, because it's also infectious, and that's good for everybody.
It is. Emotions are contagious.
Yes, they are. Oh, yeah, that's a bumper sticker waiting. Yeah, that needs to be Times Square somewhere.
Yeah, they are. And I think we know that intuitively.
Yes.
But then we can actually happiness is a skill. It is something we can actually develop.
Yes. Yes. Emotions are innate, and what we assign them is what we choose. So we don't what is happiness? Well, that's different for everybody, right? So what is that? What is satisfaction? What is gratification? What is gratitude? All those things. It's our own delineation of definition of what that precisely means to us.
And we could just talk about this all day.
We could. We only have, what, 6 hours? So
I know. Well, it is my show. My producer might kick us off being live. But anyway, one of the many things I love to explore in these conversations is life's journey. And I think that in this hyper-connected world, and you'll resonate with this, I know, because of what you do, we are less connected at the human level than ever before.
Yes. So glad you brought this up. Can I go for a minute on this?
Please, jump in.
All right, here we go. So, it's ironic, truly. It's a misnomer, Louise. I think you know this well. We are not more human to human connected. We are not more humanely connected. We are looking at tools and we're counting them as connectivity. This will never be a connector. This won't. It's, by its nature, it's a piece of electronica. The only way we can connect in person is like this fine man bringing me my Larry coffee right now. Look at that.
Whoa, beautiful.
That's connection. The only way we're going to really connect with other people is to make a concerted effort. It doesn't just happen. It's not entropy. It has to have some momentum. It has to have some energy behind it. Like, let's look at you and me, Louise. We have yet to be in the same room at the same time. We've spoken a few times. The first connection came from somebody else from a different platform, and we chose to build it. So far, our connection does have its foundation in electronic tools. However, the realness of how we're talking with each other and engaging with each other and laughing and so forth, that's real. That's connection. And you don't find it with everybody, nor should you assume that you will or want to. So connectivity is about creating and developing those relationships of true meaning and value and worth. And there's all kinds of different relationships. I'm not talking that you have this one circle and there's only 5 people in it. I'm talking about whatever your relationships are. Somebody from high school or somebody you met once and will never see again. They're all a factor of connectivity. It's up to us, and it's what I teach in my speaking and training and coaching and so forth, how to examine those and how to give yourself the liberation and the freedom to decide what are those relationships, where are they going or where are they not going, and what am I going to do with them, how do they factor into my life, and all those other questions. It feels really huge sometimes, Louise, right? We look at our relationships and it can feel very overwhelming. And so what I recommend people do is just take a look at one at a time, because connection is only one at a time. You can only connect with one person at a time. The person you talk with who's scanning the room looking for somebody else, they're not interested. We're not talking about judgment here. They're not a bad person. Clearly they have something else on their mind. So go find somebody else.
Not you.
Right, exactly. They're thinking there's somebody better or better connected or whatever. And again, all right, great. See you later. I'm going to keep moving. Finding that person who you can connect with one at a time, that's the key to building the life you love and to being, as you say, to being brave, to being bold, stepping into like, okay, let's see who that person is. What are they about? Who are they? And let's see where we can take that.
And so why does this matter so much in our life now, to the point that you are an expert in this field and people are working with you to help them connect, right? So talk to us a little bit. Yeah.
Great. I know I got to get out. I got to get to your neck of the woods so we can like do this in person. What is it about it? So that's a fantastic question, Louise. I'm compelled to share the story of how I got here. And it's a short story. I can make it short. I call it my prairie dog story.
You don't have to make, oh dear. Okay. I do need to know how that came to, how you got that title. So don't make this short. Make it as meaningful or long or short as you need it to. Go for it.
So a couple of years ago, I was at a major Y in the road. I had been doing the other thing. I had been studying women and their relationship with beer, which is a whole other show another time. And I'd done that for almost 10 years, Louise. And it was fascinating work. I was studying something that nobody had studied before. I guess I'm good at stepping into those spaces. And I was getting restless. And I know myself well enough to know that when I'm feeling restless, something needs to shift. So I generally do something very physical. I move my furniture around. I cook all day. I garden, whatever it is. So, cause I need to literally work it out. So I started feeling that way. And so what I knew then is it wasn't going to be that thing anymore. And I'm okay with that. I've changed a bunch of times. When you introduced me, I've done a lot of different things, probably like a lot of listeners. Life is fascinating. There's opportunity everywhere. But I knew it wasn't going to be that thing. So I didn't know what it was going to be. So that's where I started prairie dogging. So if everybody can imagine this field of prairie dogs, they live underground, of course. They have their little burrows, and they pop up and like, whee, and they're looking. I don't know if they actually make that sound, but it's always fun. I get
on your mind.
Yeah. I've gotten whole rooms of people saying, make the prairie dog sound. So anyway, there's the fun. So I would pop up. I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be food. That's going to be great. And I'm going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And eventually I'd kind of like, go back underground. It's like, not everything is fitting. And I didn't necessarily want to figure it out because I'm like, yeah, it doesn't fit. So then I would go back underground, think for a little while, and then I'd pop back up. And I did that about 4, 5, 6 times. And finally, well, the last time is usually the time that it sticks. That's why it's the last time. Finally, I popped up one day and I said, oh, it's connectivity. And guess what? It's always been connectivity. Because everything I've done, Louise, from starting with the middle school teaching at 22 years old, I like, it's building a connection. It's creating a connection with somebody on purpose with a service mindset. That's what it is. It's through my firefighting, through my hardware, through bread stores, and all this stuff I've done, sporting goods. It's always been that. So when I decided, it was just this enormously liberating feeling, Louise, because there's so much pressure on people to say, well, what do you do? That's the wrong question. I'm going to encourage everybody never to use that question again. The question to use is, who are you? We'll get to that later. But once I popped up and I realized that, oh, connectivity is it. Okay, so what is it? How do I explain this? How do I take something that is in my head, in my heart, in my body, and explain and share and teach? And so I set out, and you already know about this. I set out and I wrote my book. And I wrote it for 2 reasons. And the number one reason I wrote this little canon is so I was super clear. So when I was helping people, I could explain it. One of my struggles with my former business was that I tried to be everything to everybody. That's a massive mistake. Massive. I won't say I wasted those years of my life, but I sure learned a lot of stuff that I don't need to relearn. And with connectivity, I knew I needed to be super duper crystal clear with my message so people could connect with it, so they could find it useful, so I could build my business, my life, and keep that momentum rolling. So it was an enormously cathartic feeling. It took me a while to get there. I was willing to go through that kind of unknowing because I've done it before. It's not necessarily the easiest thing, but to me, it's harder to stay in a spot that I can't figure out. At least I'm going somewhere with this. So carving out the space on this, Louise, has been really interesting. And I got a lot of work to do. I liken it to somebody like Brene Brown. Brene Brown, 16, 17 years ago, said her mission was to start a global conversation on vulnerability. Well, what does that mean? I get it, right? What does being brave mean? Well, if you want to help people, if you want to impact people, if you want to develop followers, because that's what a leader does, then you got to be really clear on where you're leading the pack. And so I have looked to Miss Brown for like, how did she do that? And she's kind of a case study for me. And so I'm forging the ground. Speaking is one of my main modalities. I'm learning by the audience response and the conversations I have afterwards that I actively pursue what people want and what people need. So it's a big shifting ground right now. The foundation of connectivity is what it is for me. And that's what I stand on. And then I figure the rest of it out.
I just have so many things I want to delve into based on what you just said.
6 hours, Louise.
I know. Where do I start? One of the things that you shared that I think is really meaningful, Romani, to tease out, especially for my listeners, is, well, but before I get into that, you know another expression that's used for prairie dogging, right?
I don't. Is it?
Okay. Like, my 4 boys, it's to do with the bodily function, and I won't get into it. So that's, so maybe we'll have to talk about that offline. While I really like.
No, I'm dying to know. All
And
right.
once you explained it, I'm like, that totally makes sense. I just feel like as a friend, I need to make you aware of that. So we'll talk about that. So if you get some weird looks from people, you'll at least know what they're thinking. Okay. So
I had one person tell me that the prairie dog is their spirit animal.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great too. So
I can't wait to hear it, but offline is good. So keep
you
going.
may do nothing with what I share, but if nothing else, you at least have an expanded version of what that may mean. So I was listening to a podcast, a Super Soul Sunday, and I can't remember her name. This is awful. The author of Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, Elizabeth Gilbert. I just finished that book.
Oh, I still have not read it.
It's phenomenal. I like it way more than the movie because then we watch the movie. The movie's good, but if you've read the book, the movie doesn't hold a candle.
Okay, and I generally don't watch the movies if I've read a book, but I've done neither. But I will read that book. So you will like. So she did this podcast with Oprah after she wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast is amazing. I should put that in the show notes because it was just phenomenal.
Yes.
At the end of the podcast, she was saying that so many people felt disheartened by her work and all of her keynotes on finding your passion, on living your passion, because they didn't know how to find their passion. Like, that's great if I wake up with fireworks and know what that thing is. And what she said at the end of it reminded me, you just explained a perfect example of what she was conveying, is that just follow your curiosity. And so I love how you just displayed an example of that, because I think that we somehow feel that we're doing something wrong if we've not found that thing. You've spoken so beautifully about how you have found that thing, right? And now you're sharing from that place of joy and you can hear that energy. But I'd really like to rewind the clock a little bit and not gloss over the fact that you were a middle school teacher. You've been a firefighter. I want to go step through that a little bit. Because I think there's so much to learn from the sharing of those journeys. And what made you you have had a number of forks in the road. What did you do and how did you know? And I think that sharing that is so important for others who might be trying to find their passion and path in their life. I didn't find my path until I was 40, 41. And who knows where this will lead me.
Right.
So may we go there?
Oh, absolutely. We can go wherever you want, Louise.
Okay.
We still have 5.5 hours.
So take us back to like a time where you feel that was, a major junction, either in life or leadership, right? Because there's an intersection of it all. There's an integration of it all. It's not separate. So tell us about one of those times that was profound.
I can honestly not tell you why I got into education, because as a little girl, I was going to be a veterinarian. I was stalwart on that. I was going to be a vet. Somewhere it shifted. A couple years ago, I was having a conversation with my dad. He said, yeah, Gingy, I remember at the time into high school, we tried to help you think about other professions, but you were really focused on education. Couldn't tell you why that is. The beautiful thing about education of any sort is it is always valuable. Choose what it is. So education is my golden thread. That's in my book. It's absolutely, my pages in this book are goldenrod. So I guess I'm living that. And what I've learned, middle school teaching, I love middle schoolers, and you're welcome. I love middle school. There's something so uniquely, enthusiastically, vulnerably excited. And that to me is the state I want to live in. I love them because I understand them. I am them. And that's what I want to bring to everything. So as I look through that trajectory from middle school teacher to, let's see what, I've managed volunteers at a Viking ship heritage center. It's just random stuff. I was a firefighter. I've been a docent. To me, the whole point of the journey, Louise, is there is this remarkable world. And almost no decisions are fatal, truly. And so why not try this stuff and see where your hum is? And that's why I encourage people, don't think about like what you do as your badge or your quote success. I think success is, I don't think we should use that word very much anymore. We need to give that a massive rest, because what makes us hum, as Shonda Rhimes would say, what is our hum is what we need to pursue. I like retail. boy, is that a thankless damn profession. I love retail, Louise, because it's connecting. It is, I have so many great memories from my hardware days and my sporting goods days. It was the same company. And like, I remember a customer walking, I remember his name, I can see him. His name is Cash. I was in Fargo, North Dakota, where I was in the hardware business. I love this stuff. And he walked in, and I saw him coming in, and I was on my way somewhere else, and I greeted him by name because I have a knack for names too, which is super helpful. And he was walking in with a vacuum. Well, most people walk out of the store with a vacuum. He was walking in, he's like, Ginger, I can't get this thing to blah, 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 whatever it was. I don't know, you can change the bag or whatever it was. So I literally dropped what I had because it wasn't a critical mission. I went down on the floor, I pulled it apart. I like, oh yeah, it's this and this and this. And you know, okay, what else can I help you with kind of thing. And he went along his way. I didn't give that a second thought, Louise, until the president of the company got a letter. Because of that. But that's just how I operate. And I'm not some martyr. I'm simply thinking about how can I take care of this person? And it wasn't just my job. I loved that Camelot period of my life because I was so connected to who I was. I did identify that I was Ginger from the hardware store, no doubt about it. And I loved it because I was helping people. I come from a family who does it themselves. I've hauled shingles up ladders. One of my parents is an architect. The other one's a domestic engineer. I mean, they're just like, we just did it all ourselves. And there's a great sense of pride and worth to me. And if I can help somebody else do that thing, then that's connecting. So that's a perfect story. So all through all of that, I wasn't seeking my passion. I don't know. For me, that's not the right way to look at it. And I think we're thinking about that in a kind of convoluted way, Louise. I think if we think about what makes us hum, where do I want to put the hours of my life, my precious hours that I will never get back, that I can feel good about, where is that? And hold that bar high. Like, be proud of your damn self and say, you know what? I love doing this. This is what I do, and I'm going to do it really well. My fine husband will tell you that I'm really good at engaging with service staff, hotel hospitality, service in restaurants, the housekeepers, whoever it is, because to me, they're just another person like I am. Like, I'm not any better. They're not any worse. Like, we're all the same. We've all done, well, hopefully we've all done that kind of work before. And I think that I know that builds compassion and empathy. That helps you be brave in being who yourself is. That helps you gut it out sometimes when you have to gut it out. Because frankly, some of that stuff is really, really hard to mentally get into and move through. At the same time, if you're really strong on your why, your purpose, your vision, your mission, your own heartbeat, then you will. Marie Forleo is a queen at it too. I had 7 jobs as I built my empire, and I was thankful for every dang one of them because they were helping me get to where I wanted to go. So the journey is, I mean, that's a great way to explain it. I'm glad you called it that, Louise, because it's never ending. It's like a merry-go-round, and you're going to see something different every single time you go around. And so if every one of those circulations is a year, what do you want to see the next time you go around? What are you going to do? What are you going to actually dig into each day? What are you going to let go of? How are you going to make the difference for yourself first and help move that forward? That's how I approach life now. And I'm thankful for the lessons I've learned. I keep learning them because I am POW, as one of my acronyms is positive, objective, and willing. That's what connectors are. That's who people who make a positive impact in this world, that's the mindset they're coming from. And knowing that, they'll get through everything. I heard a radio show the other day. It's like, I don't recall the lessons I learned from being happy. I recall the lessons I learned from doing the work.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah, I mean, that's a show in and of itself too. And right. I think, to your point, that is where the lessons are learned. I had to, upon reflection, before I started my own business, I had to break open in order to break through.
Yes.
Because we like categories, don't we? We like to put labels on things.
Oh my gosh.
And I know. Well, the way the brain works, that's how the brain tries to create understanding, right? And create meaning.
Right. What is that thing? What is that thing?
Yes.
What's the label? Oh, that's that. Boom.
Yeah. And even the reason why you have POW, which is awesome, right? It's like, okay, people know what that means then. And so, but that really was a description of how I got from where I was to where I am, and there's lots of years and lots of work in between. But I love the way that you just shared all of that.
Yes, you know that Julia Child broke through at 40.
Oh, I did not know that.
She didn't start cooking till she was 40. So, well,
there's still hope for me to learn how to cook then?
Oh, well,
is that what you're saying?
Whatever your cooking thing is. That's inspirational to me. I want to see other people. The aspirational is important too. A lot of, like, one reason I left beer is that I didn't see aspirational, and I still don't see it. You've got to be able to see yourself in order to do it, like Wonder Woman on your cup there.
There we go. I know, right? It's about positivity and optimism, right? I've got power, and sometimes I put my Wonder Woman socks on. I've got power in my boots. Oh yes. So Ginger and I are Wonder Woman friends.
Your face is going to go on there next.
I love it. For those who are listening and not watching, Ginger and I were just exchanging some Wonder Woman paraphernalia over our Zoom connection. So you said that we should consider dropping the word success. Talk to me a little bit more about that, and recognizing that we like to kind of put these labels on things. Talk to me about that sort of concept, and maybe perhaps how we should shift our mindset.
I remember walking into a teacher's lounge when I was substitute teaching, Louise. I was 22 years old and walked into a teacher's lounge within the first few times that I had been called to substitute teach. And for the record, I wanted to teach so badly, I could taste it. So I was thrilled that I got called into the queue. Very rural district between Minnesota and on the border of Ontario, actually. And I remember being in that lounge one time, and one of the very seasoned teachers said, he introduced himself, and he was very friendly to me, and he said, "Now watch out for kid A, blah, 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 blah." And he immediately painted a picture of this person as a troublemaker, as a this, as a, like, nothing good. And I'm like, wow. And I think something came out of my mouth. I don't remember exactly, but I just, that was a profound lesson to me. And where I'm going with this, when I say I think we need to drop success for a while, to me, success can be an incredibly pressure-filled word. So what is success? Well, people look at you and me and they say, oh yeah, they're successful. But what that means to them is different than what it means to you and I. Is it fiscal success? Is it follower success? Is it happiness success? I think we need to qualify that word if we're going to use that word, because what I learned in the teacher's lounge that day was labels can be very damning. And it doesn't matter if you're the gifted kid, or you play the violin, or you're a podcast host, or you're a multimillionaire. All of a sudden, if we only identify people by a single label, I'm going to go in a touchy space right now. Like, if I only say, like, I have a Black friend, and I've got friends of all makes and models. I mean, it's very intentional for me because they're great people and I don't care what they look like. But if I only use that, that's incredibly limiting. If they say, Ginger, my white friend, like, it's the same thing, but we don't say that.
You don't, I know.
We're saying something else when we use a label, Louise. That's the crux of it. And what are we really trying to say? If we're really trying to say something more than, like, if I say, oh yeah, Louise, she's successful, what am I really saying? No, let's get underneath that. Let's connect with what the hell's really going on. That's the juice. That's the stuff that changes our life. And that's the sticky stuff that a lot of people don't want to talk about because they don't know how to talk about it. All we need to do is start talking about it, understanding that there's a respectful tone. So to label and only use one word or even just two or three, to me, is incredibly limiting. Incredibly limiting. And I think that's dangerous because I saw that firsthand in my classroom. For the record, I never had a discipline problem in my classroom because every single class, and I had 5th through 8th graders, okay? These people are nuts and I love them. Every single class, I would start the class with the same opening. I would say, my name is Miss Johnson, and I'm going to treat you like you treat me. So let's go. And they, like, all this, I could just feel the relaxation, like, oh, so, you know, Tony, who is the brother of a quote troublemaker, like, you know, and he's been painted with that same brush. or Christina, whose sister is the valedictorian. Now the pressure on her is so crushingly hard. Like, no, I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about you. And so if you treat me like I'm going to treat you, we're going to get along great. I remember I did have one kid leave the room one time. He was going through some stuff, and I thought to chase him wouldn't be helpful. He just needed to vent. He needed to cool off. I remember him. I remember his name. His name was Billy. He was just having a hard time because seventh grade is not an easy time of life. And he came back in, and then he was fine. But I gave him that space, and I wasn't going to let that one incident color our relationship.
Talk about connection. Talk about connection.
Yeah.
I think that in the busyness of everyday life, and really the busyness is in our mind, we don't pause enough or at all to just observe and notice.
Yes.
We react instead.
Yes.
And I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on that piece, again, for another show. I'm wondering, through this journey, through this period of time where you've been popping up and out of the ground, in and out, talk to us about fear and how you have, because everyone has experienced fear. We all still continue to experience fear. How do you harness that so it doesn't hold you back? And can you reflect on a particular time that stands out?
Another great question by Louise H. Reed. People.
I'm sorry, and I gave you no warning for these.
No, you don't have to give me warning. I'm taking a moment. You don't need to give me warning. Fear and how to harness it. So I'm not an arrogant person. I am an incredibly enthusiastic person. Like, what you see here, this is the real deal. So if you come over for dinner, this is what you're gonna get. Or brunch. Brunch is a lot of fun. I don't think about fear a whole lot. And if I do, Louise, it is more of something I referenced earlier. I'm not worried. I don't worry too much. There's things I'm certainly aware of, and there's certain things I am, some things seem kind of visceral and very surface level sometimes. And I don't look at like, holy crap, what's going to happen if? I use that as fuel. Mm-hmm. And so I think, okay, I don't want that to happen. So what do I need to do? And I get help. I am becoming better, especially in the last several months, very transparently. I am becoming better at letting other people see the bottom out. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had lots of friends over the years, probably like you, and there's so many great people in this world. It's hard to not continue relationships for me sometimes because they're just like, wow, that was fun. Let's do it again. There's something to it. There was something meaningful, whatever that is. And recently, through some of the coaching that I've invested in for myself, I've been taking a hard look at who are my first ripple, as I call them. There's multiple ripples. And who's my first ripple? Who do I really want to go deep with and show that side to? And I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed or anything like that. I just haven't been in that practice, Louise. And so to get to the depth of who I am with somebody other than my spouse who knows everything about me is a really fascinating exercise. So if you want to put a little bit of trepidation, I'm not afraid. I'm curious what's going to happen, circling back to the C word, but I'm not afraid of, is that person able to receive everything about me? And that's a really powerful examination. I've got one really close friend. Her name is Kim. She's very intense also. And that for us brings us together. I have some friends I absolutely value because they're super calm. I'm like, thank goodness you. But whether your excitement meter is visible or not doesn't change your intensity to me. Intensity is different than visible energy. So I asked her several months ago, I said, Kim, I'm going deep in this stuff. I said, I need to know if you're going to be with me. And I'd never asked anybody that question before, Louise. Mm-hmm. And she didn't miss a beat. She said, absolutely. Like, wow. All right. That felt amazing. And it's true. And we're moving forward, and I am in contact with her more than I've been in contact with other friends before. And so it's our own laboratory, right? It's our own experimentation of what life is and this journey is. And I'm really enjoying that. And so now what I'm looking at is, who are these other people in this first circle? Because I got a lot in the first circle, and who is my first ripple? So who do I hold completely close to the vest? My litmus test is, who's going to pick me up at 3 a.m. at the airport?
Yeah.
Who can I call? Who will unquestionably do that? Who will I do that for? And right now I think like I would do that for a lot more people than I feel comfortable calling. And I think I'm cutting myself short, not because I don't think I'm worth it, but it's just like, oh, it seems like an inconvenience, you know, I'll call a Lyft or something like that. So the idea of fear, I never use the word failure ever. I see the only failure is if you don't try. And I've tried a lot of stuff. So you just got to keep learning. Mistakes are tuition, like one of my first coaches and very dear friend Mike says. Mistakes are tuition. So be okay with doing the thing. One of the coaches I follow, Brendan Burchard, I'm in his mastermind group too. He says, your first stuff is gonna, he uses the word suck. It's gonna, you're gonna struggle. At the same time, that's okay, because that's growth. You've got to learn how to grow in order to grow. And I think sometimes we don't realize, like, I don't know how to grow, but I want to know how to do that thing. Well, those two are intrinsically entwined. So if I'm okay with being uncomfortable in the growth process, then I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to build that confidence and that competence. And then I'm going to have less fear. And I would say that every person who makes something of themselves, whatever that is, in whatever capacity, they build the life they love, doing any kind of work, and they're proud of it and they're good at it, they have some fear. And I think the fear is not being who they are and loving the life they create. The people that I feel truly sorry for are the people who are commiserating and bemoaning and complaining. Actually, I don't feel sorry for them. If you're commiserating and bemoaning and you're not doing anything about it, that's on you. That's not life. Tony Robbins has it right. Life isn't happening to us. It's happening for us. That is the truth, Louise. And if we understand that, the fear will always be there. At the same time, it will be quieter. It will be easier for us to deal with. We'll have these tight relationships. We arm ourselves with the construct to help us build our lives to make the impact we want to make, whatever that is. I always love reading the stories, Louise, of the person who worked in a laundry for 50 years and they leave, $5 billion or something. Like, what? How did that even happen? They were so honed into their why. They were so connected with what their life was about and what they were doing. Like, I would love to talk to those people. It's fascinating.
It is. And I see those people too. And just, I think that, they've got, to your point, such a focus. They take aligned action every day.
Yeah.
Every day it's like, is this thing that I'm going to do today, is this naps that I'm going to take, which I'm an advocate for naps, by the way. Yeah. But is this nap I'm going to take right now, is that going to take me closer to or further from my goal? And sometimes the answer is actually closer to, because I need the freaking nap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's intentional, right? It's intentional. And what pains me, and it actually does hurt my heart, is, and my regular listeners have heard me say this before, is it hurts my heart to see people walking on the treadmill of life because they actually don't know. They're living unconsciously and they don't know that they are, right? They're unconsciously unconscious.
Right. You just want to say, let me help you wake up.
Yeah.
So much more than this.
Yeah. So that's where my heart hurts. For the people who know better but don't do better, yeah, you're on your own.
Right. Ignorance can be selective. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Call me when you're ready.
Yeah, right, exactly. And to your point, Leah, I'm really glad you brought this up. To your point, how many of us don't know what we don't know, or we've never had a role model, we've never had an aspirational model, we haven't seen somebody conquer something. There's been no click, whether surface level or subconscious, of like, why is that? I don't know. Again, circling back, why did I go into education? I don't know. My mom was a teacher, but that was way before I was born. And we don't necessarily, like, where does this stuff come from? But unless we see it, and unless we have some sort of, I won't even call it motivation, I don't like that word either, but unless we have some sort of desire or spur to figure that, what is that thing over there? We don't have somebody supporting us and say, hey, you know what, there's a better treadmill over here, or let's go for a walk instead of going in circles.
Let's go into nature.
Yeah.
Let's go into nature and explore.
Yeah.
Explore.
I think we need to get a world headquarters, like a duplex, you and me side by side.
I think, like, speaking of humming, you were talking about humming, I think that would be vibrating.
Yes, absolutely.
It would have its own heartbeat. Boom, boom. I can feel it. I can feel it now.
We'll have a nap room too. I'm a huge proponent of naps. I call them brain rest sometimes. My grandma would call them resting her eyeballs. I'm like, yeah, whatever you want to call it.
That's hilarious. I must be channeling your
Ditto.
because I call it resting my eyes.
All right.
I say I'm resting my eyes.
They are lovely eyes.
Yeah, and I love so many things about what you've said, using fear as fuel. I've used that before, and I think, again, trying to sort of put things into some sort of container, help people, certainly me who loves quotes. It's like I can hold on to that. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Now what does that look like? Mm-hmm. And so speaking of maybe what that may look like, this is a bit of a broader question, not related to fear, but is there a tool or a habit or a ritual that you could not be successful, that you have in every day, that you could not be successful without?
Yes. Would you like me to talk about this?
Yeah. Ginger, this is talk radio.
Yes. I'm thinking that's like the steam is coming up out of the ears. Like, wow, there's a lot to that. So exhibit A would be a hard copy paper date book. I have kept these since I was a sophomore in college, so I've got them for a few I've got a box of them. You're going to get your box out, aren't you? Yes, I've got a box of them. And one of these days I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to go through them and count up the number of dinner parties I've hosted and look at different data. Nice, right on. I love it. I'm going to design my own one of these days. I'm going to design a connector's date book, because what I haven't found is one that fits me exactly. I bought Brendan's High Performers planner. I've gotten different models over the year. What I love about this and what helps me be, quote, successful with this, Louise, is that I would be kidding myself if I thought I could keep track of my schedule. Mm-hmm. It'd be great if it was really simple. At the same time, I'm okay with where it's at. And so to keep everything straight, to stay in order, to stay organized, because I like being organized. I'm not anal about it. You can see my office behind me. I got stuff hanging up, and that's a wonder closet with the printer and so forth in there. But I use organization tools to help me, and I'm constantly iterating on them, by the way. If something's not working, I'm thinking of a different way to do something. So that's why my calendar, I've been buying the same one for a few years. I'm like, yeah, it's still just, I gotta tweak some things. So I'll make my own. Another thing is, you referenced this earlier, I didn't move my body. Mm-hmm. And it's more and more important to me. And I used to be an active runner. I played racquetball in college, volleyball. I love to ski, things like that. There's not all that snow. So getting into the groove of how do I move my body first thing in the morning? I'm an early riser. I'm usually up between 5 and 5:30. And I like to go out for a walk before anybody else is awake. It's really peaceful.
There's something magic about the morning air.
Yes.
And space, just in general. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How it smells and the sounds and the quietness, and yet the birds. And if you really tune in, and I want to get into meditation. I don't just want to, I need to. And so taking care of.
You need to listen to my podcast with Oksana.
Okay, I will.
And I've got some really great resources that I can, when you're ready.
Okay, that'd be great. If you want to
take it easy, just to get started, right?
Okay. And I would love your help.
And then you can iterate. Sorry, carry on. Okay.
I will take your help. Thank you.
Okay.
Another thing, interestingly enough, is I referenced earlier how when I'm restless, I like to physically do something. Cooking is a catharsis for me. And I love to cook. I truly love to entertain. That offer is open. People can come, I will feed you. Because it's not about the food, Louise. It's about the connecting. It's about the coming together. When we break bread together, magic happens. I've been in a room full of Germans before. I don't speak German. They didn't speak American. And we had a great meal. Because it's universal. It's how we connect on a human level, regardless of what the language of our tongue is. That doesn't matter. I mean, connectivity is way beyond the human-to-human connection. I'm going to be bringing more of that in the future. It's our environment. It's being a steward. It's with so many things. But being able to cook is really important, because if I travel, when I come out and see you and Jay, I will bring my entourage with me, my fine husband and our 2 kids with 4 legs apiece, as it should be. And when I don't cook for several days, Louise, I can tell, because I get like, I want to cook. And I bring Julia, my knife. So there's certain habits I have that definitely help me be mentally happy and sound. I connect with certain friends. And I have a very strong relationship with my fine husband, and we talk about everything, and that's an incredible gift. I'm grateful for that every single day, because I know I don't take that for granted. And that's really important for both of us in every way too. So there's some other ones that those are probably the biggies.
I thank you for sharing those. And I love them for so many reasons, just because it's real, but also because I'm reminded of the simplicity of the things that truly ground us and that matter. And we're always looking. I was guilty of this for 40 years until I realized, wow, Louise, the whole time you've been looking outside of yourself, the answers have been inside the whole frickin' time.
Right? Like, you know, when your heart beats, it's like saying, hey, open up the door. I'm right in here.
So I talk about, I heard Oprah once say something about whispers of the soul. My soul was not whispering anymore. My soul was having a full-out tantrum. Full-out
tantrum.
Seriously.
I think that's a punk band name. Soul Tantrum. They do the podcast dance.
Do the podcast dance. All right. So when you do the things that you just said, some of the things that make you hum and connected to yourself and connected to others. So you talked about your husband, you talked about moving your body and being connected outside, like to nature. That is a form of meditation.
For sure. For sure.
And they just serve to ground and connect you. So you never then, if you do those rituals or routines or whatever you want to call them regularly, you never stray too far from yourself, and you will not have a soul's tantrum. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And anyone listening who has had a tantrum in their soul, please get help. Find a book, call me, call Ginger, Google it.
Right.
Do something, because there is a better way.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your book, and then I want to hear about another book that you would just, if you could, be screaming from the rooftops, because I know one book, your book would be one in one hand, and what's the other book that would be in the other? So tell us about both.
Whoa. Wow, Louise, that's a tough one. Why don't you ask me to pick one song for the desert island?
Well, maybe then a recent book that you've read.
I am a voracious reader.
I know you are.
Still, we'll have a library in our compound as well. One book. Well, I literally just finished Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed her writing. I like her style. It was a fun read. It was a meaningful read. I like how it was organized. Now, having written 2 books, I pay attention differently to the construct, the editing, those kinds of things. And interestingly enough, I am way less likely to get balled up on a typo or something that is a copy edit issue. And that's good for me, because I can kind of like, well, is this supposed to be hitherto or hitherfore?
Because the word hither is in so many books these days.
Come hither, darling. So that's a really fun one. Here, I've got my little magic green book of the books I keep track. Oh, if I'll go genre on you right now.
Yeah.
So my mother-in-law, who I adore as well, she and I agreed that we were going to read the Caldecott and the Newberry books. couple years ago, we thought, oh, this would be a lot of fun. And so for people who are unfamiliar with those, Caldecott and Newbery books are literature prizes for young adult and children's literature, for illustration and for writing. And so, and Shirley and I both have education backgrounds. She was a career preschool teacher, Lord love her soul, and she's still around, but I would never teach preschool. I would stink at it. And we decided to start reading those books, and that's been really fun. And recently, very recently, in the last few months, I have been reading what is classified as young adult literature. And so I am really jamming on the young adult literature because, Louise, if you can write a great young adult book, meaning the pre-tween, the tween to the advanced teen, if you can write a book that is a fantastic, oh my gosh, I can't put this down, you can write anything. And the profundity and simplicity of an excellent young adult literature book is remarkable. So I have been actively seeking out those books and just reading them. They're really fast because I'm a fast reader, and they are designed for somebody who is not an adult. So, I mean, there's not a judgment, it's just how they're laid out. I read a graphic novel, Roller Girl. It was one of the winners too, and it was super fun. I'd never read a graphic novel before. In our days, it was called a
comic.
Yeah, right. So, retro. So young adult has so many lessons to learn. One I read recently, I would highly recommend. Let me get the name of it. There's so many. The Auditorium, Oddditorium, and it's a fantastical story. And there's so many lessons in children's literature and young adult literature. There is always a lesson if it's a well-written piece. And as an adult, it's like watching Toy Story. Toy Story really isn't a kid's movie.
It's great.
It's very much an adult movie. But the subtext, depending on where you're at in your life, is different. Just like country songs. Like when you're happy, there's a country song that fits. When you're in the craps, there's a country song that fits. It's all context. So we could talk books all day long, but I can send along a list if you want to share that with.
I would love that.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's pretty chocked full.
I would love that, and I'll be jumping onto those as well. I like reading that genre of book as well, because that's where my kids are.
Outstanding.
We are at the top of the hour. What is one, if you can say it in like 20 seconds, what's the one lesson that you hope that people take away from this interview today? You're talking about book lessons from the book. What's your lesson from this?
Anybody who wants to connect can, period. It's not about vert status. It's not about your comfort level. It is about confidence and competence, getting the help you need. You and I know, Louise, that getting a coach, having coaching, taking the coaching changes your life, because then you are that positive, objective willing. You are that person, and you are ready to receive. You have to trust. You have to have faith. This isn't about hope. This is about faith. I can do this thing, so let's figure it out. Anybody who wants to connect can, if they really mean it.
Thank you so much for that lesson, and thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing space with me. It's just been an absolute joy.
Thank you, Louise. You too. I love you. I can't wait to get together in person and cook for you.
I can't wait to eat what you cook for me.
All right, excellent.
And of course, thank you to all of you, my loyal listeners. I'd like to remind you that information about my radio show and about my guests can be found at louisehreed.com. Also, as always, a big shout out to my producer, Cameron Steele at Contact.
Doing podcast dance for Cameron.
And always lots of love to the human being in this world who I'd not be here without, and that, apart from my mother and father, is my wonderful partner, Jay Andrews. And finally, I'm here to highlight and showcase people who are taking brave, bold action, whose actions have a positive impact in our world. With that said, I'd like to leave you with this quote: be bold enough to use your voice, brave enough to listen to your heart, and strong enough to live the life you've always imagined. Until next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, I'm Louise H. Reed, wishing all of you an amazing day. Goodbye, friends.